everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. If you're looking for strategic ways to expand your talent networks and how to improve your in-person and virtual recruiting, then we've got some great content we are super excited to share with you. This webinar is brought to you by Bamboo HR and Reflick. My name is Vanessa, and I will be one of your presenters as well as moderating today. Now, I want to start off by saying thank you for being here. The fact that you are here says so much about you. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules just to come. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We will be doing a Q&A at the end of the session, so if you'd like to submit questions, you can do that in the chat panel. And we will also be sending out a recording of the webinar as well as a copy of the slide deck. So just by way of introductions, my name is Vanessa again. I'm a talent acquisition partner at Bamboo HR. My focus is to inspire and enable HR and recruiting to be more strategic. I study recruiting best practices and strive to become a master of my craft. I also love discussing recruiting strategies and the impact HR and recruiting can have in a company. Two of my favorite things are Star Wars and M&Ms, and anytime I can find a way to combine the two, I definitely will. And I'm very excited to introduce my co-presenter, Michael Bavaro, and I'll let him kind of take the floor and introduce himself.
Thanks, Vanessa. I've been working in and around the staffing industry as an executive for, say, close to about 15 years now. I've had the pleasure of working with Reflick on business development and sales side for about 2 years now. Had the pleasure of working with many ATS companies, just like Bamboo HR, integrate with our recruitment solution. And through a lot of hard work and really pushing the envelope in technology and really forward thinking, our team has caught the attention of some hiring giants. I'd love to go through the webinar with you.
Thanks so much, Michael. So just get started. Today we're talking about expanding your talent networks. Right away, we run into a bit of a pickle. Out of the millions of possible candidates, you can only choose one per open position. And each of these candidates start out with a full market of opportunities, but want to choose the right organization for their future. And the pressure to choose the best begins for both the employee and the employer. When it comes to making decisions, though, sometimes the idea of what's best gets in the way of actually making the choice. A few years back, Trader Joe's did a study on choice and decision making. At their sample tables, they experimented with offering consumers different varieties of jam. They found that when they presented 6 different varieties of jam, they ended up selling 10 times as many jars of jam as when they had 24 different types of jam on the table. With fewer options, customers had less to consider before making their decision. Barry Schwartz, a professor of psychology at Swarthmore College and author of The Paradox of Choice, Why More is Less, details an experience where he went to the store to buy a pair of Levi's. Now, he did his best to find the perfect pair of jeans, trying on many different styles. In the end, he walked out with well-fitting jeans, but instead of being happy with his purchase, he was thinking that one of those pairs of pants should have been perfect, but none of them were. The decision-making process takes a toll on us, to the point that we conserve our brain power for the most important decisions. We give up on buying the jam, or we say good enough with the jeans. We eliminate whole categories of options just to make the process easier. No citrus jam, no bootcut jeans. We pick whatever is closest to us, or we just go with the default. But when it comes to hiring, the pressure is on to make the right decision. According to SHRM's Human Capital Benchmarking Report, the average cost per hire is a little over $4,000. This seems like a small amount to risk on an employee, but this figure is only a small part of the total cost of replacing an employee, which SHRM estimates at somewhere between 16% of annual salary for entry-level workers and 213% of annual salary for executives and other specialized workers. And if that seems like a big cost, it gets even bigger when you consider how your employees interact with each other. Your employees fall on a spectrum of engagement, if you will. The spectrum runs from actively engaged employees who are putting in their best work and keep your organization moving forward to actively disengaged employees who stay with your organization while actively working against it. These actively disengaged employees are more likely to steal from you, negatively influence their coworkers, miss workdays, creating more work for other employees, and complain to your customers and drive them away. Now, Gallup estimates that actively disengaged employees cost the U.S. $483 billion to $605 billion each year in lost productivity, and that's quite a lot. Of course, these are average figures. When it comes to your organization, you know better than anybody else the costs that go into finding, training, and supporting your employees in their roles. So the pressure's on. Find the perfect candidate. Meanwhile, your candidates are looking for the perfect company for them, and they're going through the same process, narrowing down their options until they can make their decision. How your organization presents itself makes all the difference, not just in getting noticed, but also in your employee satisfaction levels in the coming months and years. At Bamboo HR, we like to call this building your employer brand. Now, quick quiz. Can you remember the names and brand logos of the last 5 places you applied for a job? Well, hopefully you know the logo of the place where you accepted your current job, so that doesn't count. All right, now how about the last 5 places where you had interviews? Was that a little easier? Now I know that many of you have been at your current position for a long time, especially the more experienced ones out there. So I'm willing to bet that the logos you remember came from organizations that did more than just walk you into an office for an interview with an interchangeable hiring manager and deliver the line that the company really values its employees. It takes more than a creative logo design on your job posting to deliver the type of experience that changes a job candidate into a dedicated, engaged employee. And it takes more than updating your website's career page to get your organization on the right candidate's radar. Your organization's brand is more than just a logo for clients or customers. More and more, it's also the experience your employees have at work, offering candidates an exceptional employer brand experience throughout the hiring process. From first exposure to the end of training and beyond makes all the difference in your recruiting efforts. So here's the first question. Does your brand build your culture, or does your culture build your brand? If you want to make a powerful impression on your potential candidates, both statements need to be true. Our SEO manager frequently puts out a list of mentions. These are other pages across the internet that decided to link to Bamboo HR's content. One notable one came from a French site making the case for producing videos to promote your brand. The caption reads, "An excellent example of video branding from Bamboo HR." Now, I'm not mentioning this to toot our own horn. I mean, the video was at the bottom of the page. But it's still fascinating that the principles conveyed in the video communicated our values well enough to be considered an excellent example, even to an audience that doesn't share a common language. This gets at an important concept when it comes to branding and culture. While messaging matters, experience matters more. Creating a great experience gives a new credibility to your messaging, and this is especially important when attracting top talent to your organization. Let's be frank. Your best candidates aren't often your desperate candidates, not in a decent economy anyway. The best candidates are in demand, and they're the ones who get to choose whether or not to bring their talents to your organization. And they make this choice based on the full picture, not just salary, which they can get anywhere, and not just on benefits alone, not just on peripheral perks, that's a hard word, like nap rooms and ice machines. They cross-reference your messaging with Glassdoor reviews. They pay attention to the word of mouth and any rewards or other recognition your organization receives. And all of this happens before they even decide to apply. There are many challenges inherent in recruiting. Overcoming the unknown, making an accurate evaluation of strangers and their capabilities, and setting up an attractive workplace are just a few of them. It's a lot easier to solve these problems when you have additional support and tools.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks for going into such great detail. But before I really get into the rise of crowdsourcing, I really want to commend you on the marketing and the branding efforts that you've done for that video. I saw that you had over about 207,000 views. Your company basically crowdsourced its culture to future prospects of the company. That pretty much leads me into my segment of the rise of crowdsourcing. I speak to hundreds of different leaders each month. And basically our pain points are the quality, time, and cost. That pretty much engulfs the recruiting aspects. I mean, quality, Most companies just post and pray, aggregates not really branding them properly. The time that everybody puts in, whether it's the executives or the recruiters, literally evaluating all of the unqualified candidates coming through, it's just not enough time to go through the prospects. And it costs the labor hours evaluating all these unqualified candidates. It just keeps on growing and growing and growing. Now, you look at the recruiting challenges. I work very closely with both sides of clients, the recruiters that are on the ground floor evaluating candidates and the CHROs of the world as well. Both sides feel the same pain from personal use or from their team's efforts as well. The technology that's not around to really leverage the resume data banks to really streamline the processes or the access, getting in front of the right platforms, the right job boards, the right aggregates, and really the visibility of trying to break into new marketplaces, whether a company is just in one state and they're growing into different areas or trying to promote the remote workforce. It's just not really giving them visibility to really leverage their capabilities fully. And that really brings us to crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing has become pretty much a buzzword, not just in our industry, but in all industries. It's one of those words that's getting thrown around so much that it's actually losing its impact. So here's a real-world example for you of how it works, and you've probably done it yourself. So it's a little off-topic of recruiting, but let's say you get a minor problem. You need a new lawnmower, but you haven't really bought one in the last 10 years, and you aren't really sure what brands are good, what features are better, where price point should be at. So everybody does the same exact thing. You jump on Facebook, you make a post. Hey, I'm looking to buy a new lawnmower before this week, and my grass is about 5 feet high. What brands are good? How much should I spend? What should I be looking for? Where can I get one? It's been like 10 years since I've actually done this. So you've pretty much just crowdsourced your question. You probably got a whole slew of answers in a very brief time frame. You had 2 or 3 really good brands to choose from and several places or people that you're friends with that are pointing in the right direction of which ones are on sale at certain stores. So crowdsourcing helps people get things done faster, better, and cheaper. And it's also for businesses as well. Crowdsourcing really leverages the power of many to streamline the efforts, reduce the administrative burden, really make things very cost-effective, also improving the customer experience, and transparency is everything when it comes to this for the end user and for the user itself. So it really opens up a lot of doors for a lot of companies and people that try and leverage the crowdsourcing capabilities. Now, talent crowdsourcing is very different. Now, talent crowdsourcing has been around for a few years, and it's really shaking up the industry in 2017. Imagine taking the simple principles as before and applying it to the recruiting industry. What you're looking when you're looking to hire call center representatives or programmers or even executives into your company, now you can crowdsource the candidates through a group of seasoned recruitment professionals in a matter of seconds. Your efforts can be streamlined with better quality candidates coming through the pipeline and cheaper because you're harnessing the power of the crowd. It's truly bringing the recruitment industry into the 21st century. And really, let me show you how this works in most cases. Now, most of the times crowdsourcing is pretty much faster, better, and cheaper. But how do you actually do this? In most platforms nowadays, let's say focus on faster. Most of you on this call right now either post and pray on job boards, or if you have staffing agencies or recruiters that you go to, you'll have a sit down with them. You'll describe exactly what you're looking for. You'll try and peel it onion back as many layers as possible to describe your company, your culture, your background, and what key traits that you're looking in for a candidate. They're going to take this, they're going to attach it to the job, and they're going to put it on their platform and market it out. The beauty is the recruiters and staffing agencies and headhunters that are working on these platforms get a chance to leverage and monetize their personal and professional network, their connections, and their resume databases to really find and fill and crowdsource qualified candidates and submit it through. Ultimately, this is really cutting the time to fill in by half. So when these candidates are submitted through the process, in any cases, they're coming into the platform. Most good platforms will have some technologies built in that will filter out the unqualified candidates, really force the cream to the top. They might have a dedicated account manager that's there to interview, evaluate, screen, vet out any unqualified candidates, and really hand select the people that match your core interests very quickly and then send them over to you. I mean, most platforms, they're one platform, which literally streamlines the communication. You don't have to speak to, let's say, a multitude of different staffing companies. You can speak with one individual at the company, and they'll champion that company and that position throughout the entire crowd. And one of the biggest benefits is, instead of dealing with or working with 1, 5, or 10 staffing professionals or industries or companies, now you have an opportunity to really break it out there, work with 50 or 60, and it's not really adding any more labor or communication onto your platform. And most of these platforms are success-based fee models, which means there's no risk of utilizing them. You're getting qualified candidates coming in, and you're only paying for the successful hire. And since you have this opportunity of literally leveraging the power of many, most crowdsourcing platforms can save you up to about 50% of normal staffing competitors out there. Now, you look at some of the success stories in the industry. I mean, there's a lot that are out there that are really shaking up the industry. I mean, Uber, everybody knows them. They've literally led the charge in crowdsourcing labor, and now there's dozens of different competitors that are breaking into the industry in different marketplaces. Crowdfunding with Kickstarter, crowd travel. My wife lives and dies by Airbnb. We just took a vacation up north. We're going to Florida in a week or so, and Airbnb literally is an amazing attribute to crowdsourcing. It's leveraging the everyday people's homes to where people can travel to. And us as Reflick, we're really trying to lead the charge in crowdsourcing, leveraging not only the crowd but also technology to forge some of the best qualified candidates for the industry. And it's really breaking into different segments of the market. Now, another form of crowdsourcing internally is referrals. And I've always loved this method of hiring. Bamboo and Vanessa are really experts on this subject.
Thanks, Michael, and I love that you used a lot of different examples out in the marketplace of how people are using crowdsourcing. I thought those were awesome, and I totally agree with your wife that Airbnb was awesome, and I use them all the time. What?
I said thank you.
You're welcome. So going into mastering the referral, the more human minds you have working for you, the better the result. It's one of the reasons that referrals have been found to work better in study after study. One of the latest from Gallup analyzed a summer internship program for college students. The program's main recruiting strategies included both media campaigns and internal referrals. After almost 19,000 people completed the program, Gallup's analysis showed that the internal referrals were more than 40% more likely to interview successfully and get an offer for a spot in the program than candidates who applied through the media channels. Now, of course, the first step to getting employee referrals is to build the type of workplace where people want to work, complete with engaged employees who spread word of mouth. But it certainly doesn't hurt to incentivize referrals as long as you do it the right way. At Bamboo HR, we have a fairly traditional bonus program when a referral gets hired, which encourages our employees to submit candidates. But for particularly tricky candidates or niche job offerings, like our current posting for a user experience designer, we add on what we call a referral. In the referral, the person who submits the most qualified applicants for a position gets to choose from a selection of prizes. This incentivizes the behavior we're trying to promote, namely the work the employee puts into submitting referrals. This engages our employees better because the reward comes from something they have control over. Then, if the referral doesn't end up getting hired, they're less likely to see it as wasted effort. The goal of referrals is to get the best person for the job, and part of it is carefully considering as many good options as possible. Now here's a question. What if that person is someone who already works for you? There's a good concept called functional fixedness. In order to save time, our minds assign everything one main function, and we tend to stick with it. There's a classic experiment. If you have a box of tacks, a matchbook, and a candle, how can you attach the candle to the corkboard wall so the wax doesn't drip on the table. The only way you get to the correct solution is by looking closer at your materials. In this case, people tend to see the box of tacks with a single purpose. They forget that the box is also a tool, one they can tack to the wall and use to hold the candle. Your employees all have their own boxes, their own backgrounds, aptitudes, and soft skills. Just because these boxes have held responsibilities for a certain position doesn't mean that your employee is only capable in that position. It can be a tricky proposition for an employee to switch positions within your organization, especially if the open position is in another department. In this case, important than ever to show that you recognize an employee's capabilities. Now, our recruiting team was still working out the last details on our brand new internal hiring document when one of our HR implementation specialists applied to an open videographer position. From the very beginning, we knew she didn't have the experience we needed, but we wanted her to know that we valued her time and her dedication to Bamboo. So we decided to offer honest feedback so that the next time a position came up, she could better assess whether she would be a competitive candidate. As we expected, she didn't have the experience some of our other applicants had, so following the interview, we got together with the hiring manager and worked out how we would phrase our rejection. Now, this is often an uncomfortable conversation to have with candidates, and even more so when speaking with internal candidates. In this case, though, the hiring manager was very open and excited to share this information with her and had a great attitude throughout the entire process. Following their conversation, we met with this candidate to gather her feedback about the process. She affirmed that although she was disappointed she didn't get the job, the way we went about the process and offering feedback provided the best hiring experience she's ever had. She actually said this was the best rejection I've ever had, which is awesome. Not every internal candidate will be the right fit for a new position, or the best. But at Bamboo, we've successfully had several transitions between departments. One of our former recruiters is now developing software, and a former UX designer found a better match with his long-term career goals on the creative team. Avoiding seeing people in fixed functions opens up your candidate pool beyond a fixed view of who qualifies. So should all of your recruits come from referrals? While referrals often produce great candidates, using referrals as your only source of candidates also limits your candidate pool and also has an effect on diversity.
Well, thank you, Vanessa. I mean, you brought us some really amazing topics for referrals and the internal hires. We always ask clients that we deal with, small, medium, and large, to try and tap into that hire segment a little bit more, especially when we try and focus on the diversity hiring because it's very tough. Diversity hiring is always tough because it's on the minds of the employers. I mean, we were recently contacted by several medical and pharma clients a few weeks back to head up their diversity hiring initiatives. They had a strategy they wanted to try and accomplish while obviously staying very compliant. At first, it was very tough for us, but once we understood the initiatives, we knew we can cast a larger net over a segment of the recruiter community to deliver amazing diversified candidates to bring through their pipeline. With the crowdsourcing platform similar to, let's say, Referrals, we have the ability to really educate our community easily, and so that we can accomplish a task like this very quick. We do this by, let's say, posting specific updates on the positions in the back office, emailing campaigns targeted to diversity hiring firms, building awareness of the positions, and hosting webcasts to highlight the key objectives to the community of recruiters that have engaged with these positions. And even taking it even further, if, let's say, we see different pipelines aren't getting the traction that we know that they deserve, we have an opportunity of pulling some of the acquisition directors or recruiters that are working on the specific positions and try and market it to all the recruiters that have engaged, let's say, on our platform and people that have the core competency to build a webinar for them so that the acquisition directors can speak a little more personally and accurately on the positions, and it's a direct transfer of knowledge. I mean, knowledge is the key to success. transfer of knowledge and the ability to reach more qualified people in a fraction of the time will make the diversity hiring a lot easier, and that's how we accomplish things. Now, everything comes down to the benefits and how it's truly going to help the company, the managers, and essentially the recruiters finding your next hires. The not only to cover some of the points I've been speaking about, but this is a new form of recruiting, crowdsourcing, and it's got traction because it's very successful. If your company hasn't devoted some time to research, besides this call, and piloting some crowdsourcing platforms, they're not leveraging all the avenues to generate the right candidates for your organization. And then these are just a few benefits that most companies really get when they have an opportunity of crowdsourcing or getting crowdsourcing candidates coming in. I mean, it's literally leveraging the everyday individual's network, tapping into a network of professionals, and having the ability to choose from a sea of best entries instead of just working with one or two individuals that might have that opportunity. And everybody's focusing in on time and labor and the cost for it, with having the ability to work with, let's say, one platform, taking away the administrative burdens, just streamlining the entire process and making it beneficial for all. Now, even though most people on this call are employers looking for innovative ways to recruit, these types of platforms are also designed to benefit the recruiter community as well. I mean, that's a big business in itself. Recruiters can now break out of their, let's say, geographic limitations or locations, not have to go through the individual approval process, and work with multiple companies that they might not have an opportunity of working with or have a hard time getting through the approval process. One of the biggest complaints I get from prospective employers is that they see the same candidate submissions day in and day out from a lot of the recruiters or staffing vendors that they work with. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's no silver bullet in recruiting, but crowdsourcing will give companies an advantage. With this new vertical, it grants recruiters from all over the country to gain access to your jobs. In turn, you gain access to their databases, their connections, and their passive candidates. This new applicant pipeline can fill openings quicker, better, or more efficient, and candidates that you've never seen before. But no matter what type of recruiting you do, I mean, your company's reputation is a key factor of getting the chance to hire the right people. Don't you agree, Vanessa?
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I loved your examples. So kind of going along with that, how your candidates experience your organization matters now more than ever, and so much of this comes from how you present it to them. I just had a candidate accept an offer who had a couple of other companies after him offering more money than we could. He was kind of a dime a dozen. He decided to accept the offer from us because he loved his experience the most here. He said, "You did a job well done." Sorry, I just totally had a brain freeze right there. And that feels good when you really you recruit for your reputation. For example, I tell anyone who joins our online marketing team that they are extremely hardworking individuals who value each other's strengths. Once a week, they report to the team any big projects they are working on and what they are doing to meet deadlines and have success. This team has several different marketing channels like social media, email, media buying, SEO, etc. And if somebody has an idea for one of the other channels in the team, it never stays in their silo. They make sure it's heard and considered. And they also go out to lunch with each other every other week as well. And a lot of times I just invite myself because they're cool. And sharing this explanation is a great way to show anyone looking to join the team that it's a team-oriented environment and where you can work collaboratively with other channels. I also like to share a couple of stories about the executive team. Now, I was here about a week, and the CEO came up to me, shook my hand, and said, "Hello, are you Vanessa?" And I just thought to myself, are you supposed to talk to me? What is happening right now? This is something I was not used to. I came from a previous work environment where if upper management spoke to you, you were either the luckiest duck in the pond or you were in a lot of trouble. Now, another interaction I had was with the CFO, and I'd been with HR for about 3 weeks when I had a really important question regarding a position we were about to close. I looked at his calendar and saw that it was completely blocked out because he's in the middle of working on finances. But it was a critical question. So I walked up to his office door. I saw that it was shut. His headphones were in. So I just took a deep breath and I knocked on his door, and he took his headphones off and very kindly asked what he could do for me. I told him, I promise, this is a 5-second question. And to my surprise, he invited me into his office. Instead of quickly answering the question and sending me on my way, he took the next 10 minutes to answer the question, as well as train me on how to solve the question in the future on my own. And I just thought that was cool because it's great for candidates to see of leadership and how the interaction goes on there, because it allows them to see how it would be like if they were to join the team, and giving real-life examples. Now, tours give you the opportunity to tell your organization's story, letting your candidates connect with your company and visualize themselves there. As you consider building your own tour, go through your organization's values and lay out the big picture of how each team contributes to your mission with relatable stories. So, does the recruiting stop when the new hire signs the contract? Here are some stats that suggest otherwise. The Adecco Group found that 87% of your new hires aren't fully committed to their jobs for the first 6 months. One of our studies showed that 31% of our respondents had to quit a job in the first 6 months, and that 16 to 17% of respondents had quit a job between 1 week and 3 months. Onboarding is an essential part of beating these odds. And if you're looking to build your reputation and your employer brand, then you need to focus on reducing the number of new hires that fail to launch. Because what happens when these hires quit in the first new hires quit in the first new window, they go to Glassdoor and say something like they sometimes will give like negative reviews. So according to a 2016 Glassdoor US Site survey, the majority of candidates read 6 reviews before forming an opinion about a company, and 70% of people now look to reviews before they make career decisions. Candidates today increasingly treat a job search like an online shopping experience. Now, I love shopping, so that just makes complete sense to me. So if 5 out of 6 reviews say that managers treat employees like peasants, future applicants won't read it as an isolated, disgruntled employee. They'll realize that the issue is persistent and severe enough to have multiple mentions with your official messaging as just one voice among many. As you consider your recruiting efforts, it's really important to manage your online presence. Making yourself known to a candidate is only the first step. Their success at your organization depends on how you shape your employees' experience. So what does this mean for you as an HR professional? Employee experience matters most. This is true from the beginning of their contact with your organization, whether they are referred from a close friend or from the far corners of your online network. Developing a great place to work and communicating that reality with as many people as possible helps remove the barriers between your organization and the best talent out there, letting you expand your in-person and virtual talent networks. So using the things that we discussed in this webinar, like referrals, employer branding, we have found some awesome Bambooigans to join our team. As you can see in this lovely picture of some of the Bambooigans that work here. Building this team is huge because each of these individuals have helped us become the #1 HR software for small to medium-sized businesses.
Well, thanks, Vanessa. I mean, this gives a little snapshot on a Reflic as well. In just 3 short years of being around, we've gone into reputation supply the 10 best quality candidates in less than 10 days. I mean, this is really due to our community of a little bit over 11,000 recruiting professionals, staffing companies, agencies that have joined our site, the proprietary algorithms that we've built to filter out candidates that don't match, and the dedicated account managers that will only hand select the best potential matches for every position from any one of our clients. And that's probably the reason why giants like Canon, General Dynamics, Manulife, and many others trust our recruiting. We've had over 250 employers come to us so that we can tap into areas that they're lacking, whether it be diversity or not, and that we have the capabilities of sourcing and selecting candidates from an entry level all the way up to an executive level amongst every industry that's around. So it really gives us an edge helping build clients' pipeline for recruiting.
Well, thanks everyone, and Michael, I loved presenting with you. There was some great content, and I really hope everyone can take something from the content that we've presented. Just as a reminder, we'll be sending out a copy of the slide deck and recording of the webinar within the next few days. And I know that we want to go into the Q&A session, but right before we get into the Q&A session, just wanted to let everyone know watching this webinar that you will receive a free job posting on our ATS and a full access to our HRIS for 1 week. And Michael, it looks like Reflick has a great promotion as well. Would you like to tell everyone what that is?
Sure. I mean, with leveraging the crowd, I mean, we're similar to that of the staffing industry, and the standard percentages right now are about 25+%. We wanted to give everybody that's interested in trialing out a new recruiting solution like crowdsourcing a free 3-month trial on our platform with some reduced rates as well. It's up to about like a $3,000 savings, but if it's something that you're interested in, I'd love to speak to everybody about it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael. All right, so now we'll begin our Q&A session. I'm going to start off with a question that was geared towards Bamboo, but feel free to chime in, Michael, if you've got any input. So what is a good length for an office tour? That was a great question. For me, the perfect length is about 15 to 20 minutes. It kind of allows me the time to get to know the candidate a little bit more and show them the office, share some cool facts, and introduce them to some Bambooligans. And it's fun because they're able to create connections with people within the workplace, which I think is really important because it creates more of that connection with them in the company and wanting them to work here. Next question. Somebody came in and asked, this geared more a little bit towards you, Michael. They would like a little bit more information on crowdsourcing and diversity recruiting.
Sure. I mean, crowdsourcing, I'll give you an example with us. We're very hands-on as an employer. So let's say General Dynamics is one of my clients that I brought on a few weeks ago. I have 2 directors and around 20 recruiters that all registered on our platform. We're marketing a ton of their positions. How crowdsourcing works with them is they're looking for the needle in the haystack. So we sit down with their recruiters and their acquisition directors and hiring managers, and we have an intake call. We learn what they're looking for, personality, background, culture, fits. I mean, we peel it onion back as many layers as possible so that we can evaluate on behalf of them. We create a micro page on our platform for, let's say, General Dynamics. We attach each one of their job descriptions to it. And during those intake sessions, we take some very detailed notes and attach those insights and make them public on our platform. Now, instantly, it's available to over, let's say, 12,000 people to start leveraging and marketing and doing what they do best, which is recruit. So there might be 10 people or 50 individuals and companies that might engage in that opportunity. They're going to take it, they're going to share it on social media, they're going to post it on their LinkedIn, and it's going to garner a lot of, let's say, visibility through passive and active candidates, and they're also going to be tapping into their resume data banks. We've developed some pretty cool algorithms which will allow them to upload their resumes, and it'll read through the job description, read through their resume data banks, and point to people that might match perfectly so that it'll give them an opportunity of speaking to them. So we're literally crowdsourcing all these qualified candidates. They're submitting them through our platform. It goes over to a dedicated account manager. We screen, evaluate every single person that comes through. So if we get 20 or 30 qualified people, we might only hand select or crowdsource those 5 or 10 perfect matches and send them over to the recruiter or the employer. And we develop an executive summary on each and every single person. So we're really trying to do all the upwards funnel work so that you don't have to, streamlining the entire process. And with that diversity, we can do the same exact thing. We have a lot of partners on our platform that fill out an amazing amount of information in the back end, so we can market to the diversity firms very quickly and speak with them directly on exactly what the diversity measures that our employers are looking for, so that we can blend to stay compliant with the applicants that we're sending over, but we can leverage pretty much our network to find those capabilities. With one of the large pharma clients that came over to us, they were pretty much vetting out about 50 different employers, and they were asking us, well, what have you done in this industry, because we have a big initiative that we're looking to give you. So we leveraged all of our networks and connections, and I mean, the numbers that we gave over were simply amazing, and we started moving forward. So I mean, crowdsourcing has a capability of really casting an amazing net over a population of people that wouldn't normally be found through normal internal recruiting efforts.
Thanks, Michael. So next question that came in, would you give an office tour on the first day or after the interview? The best routine we've got that works really well is we schedule it right before the interview. So we spend 15 to 20 minutes. The managers all know that we do it, so everyone's on the same page. Everyone loves it. And so I'll take them on the tour throughout the office, again, introduce them to people, let them get to know how the processes work within the company, and again, introduce them to bambooligans, because that's what we call each other here. And I think it's just a great way right before the interview so that they come in even more prepared, understanding the dynamic and what it's really like here, so that they don't have that concern in their mind while they're in the interview, because they already have seen it. And so I love that question. That's a great question.
To piggyback on what you're saying, Vanessa, not to jump in, but that's one of the biggest things. In my last company, I used to run a lot of the onboarding for our call centers, and we had a call center of like 750 people internally and externally, and we had over, 1,000 people in a corporate headquarters, and those little tours were such an important aspect of the onboarding, and it literally doubled the retention once people saw the personality and the attitude and the culture of everybody. They were excited to go through the hiring process, and extremely excited when we gave them the offer. So I can't commend you enough on those tours.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, that's awesome that doubled the retention, and yeah, I love that. Next question, what kind of advice would you give to a new talent manager? Michael, I don't know if you've got some good advice right off the bat as far as somebody who's just getting into talent management, what kind of advice you give them?
I don't really know. I mean, it really just keep your eyes open and trial a lot of new ways to try and manage the candidates that are coming into the pipeline. Most people are stuck in pretty much one way of doing things and really afraid of technology, of what it's going to be doing to branding and visibility, and is it going to bring in too much applicants and not enough labor to go through everything. Just managing time wisely. I mean, and trying to find specific platforms that might let's say, augment some of their efforts if it's a cost-effective measure for them. So it's taking some of the headaches off their plate and putting it on something else. It's something that we've done with some smaller clients that they only have one person doing HR and recruiting, as well as the evaluations, and also helping out with finances. I mean, we try and accommodate everybody's needs, small, medium, and large, by, let's say, throwing the burden of administrative onto our crowd shoulders.
No, that's great. And just to add on, Michael, to what you're saying, and to this person asked question, just remember, like, when you have people internally who are, looking to give referrals even, or looking to move into other positions and wanting to talk to you, remember that there's value in candidates, but there's also value in employees, and just have the open line of communication, because you can definitely have a positive effect on current employees as well as candidates. Another question that we have here, someone asked, I have a commercial cleaning business. Should I give virtual tours of job sites, for example? My advice would be, we don't really do that here at Bamboo, virtual tours. Typically, everyone just comes in office. But, try it out. See if it works for you. And if you find that it works, do it. Nothing's stopping you. So I don't know, Michael, if you've got any questions on that or suggestions on that, because I know it definitely creates a different experience being virtual, but just try it out.
Yeah, virtual tours, it really all depends on the picture that you're trying to depict. I traveled for 10 years doing consulting and with a wide range of companies, and how most of them got me was giving me a virtual tour of what they're doing, and it gives an opportunity of the culture, the personality, if it's going to be a good blend or if it's just going to be oil and water. So just as long as you're depicting your company in the best of lights and painting a picture for them, I highly suggest it. But I see another question coming in, and they're asking, what is the biggest difference between, let's say, working with a crowdsourcing platform and a staffing vendor or a recruiting agency? And one of the biggest differences that I think is, I've worked with staffing companies and job boards and aggregates pretty much my entire career, and the biggest difference is the results that you're getting in. Most staffing professionals or agencies, when they're doing the onboarding call, they're handing it off to a handful of recruiters to work on, and it's their responsibility to fill that rec or submit candidates for that rec. And it's what their knowledge circle is going to generate for you is going to be the results. And most of the times with platforms like ours or any one of them out there, when you're going through, you're dealing with one person, a party, and you're submitting it out there, you're going to get pretty much a selection from a sea of best entries from 5, 10, 15, 20 different individuals that do this for a living. So the quality is going to be a lot better, the effort's going to be a lot better, and the cost is going to be a lot cheaper. And that really is an effective solution in most companies' eyes as trying to streamline that process. It actually leads into another question that just came in is, what is the average cost of crowdsourcing? Well, it really all depends. In the staffing industry right now, I think the average percentage or placement fee is right around 25%. For the average, sometimes it'll go down to around 22, and for executive staffing, it's right around 33 to 37%. With crowdsourcing, it can drop that in almost half. I know we start at like 14% of the placement fee, which is an extremely aggressive scenario for most companies, and we have that opportunity to literally leverage all of our community throughout the entire country. So it really gives the advantage to the employer to be very cost effective, no risk, and really gives them an opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael. I loved all your explanations. I'm glad that you could answer those questions about crowdsourcing. And again, it was so much fun presenting with you today, Michael. I love the content that we had today, and hopefully everyone listening in was able to take something from it and be able to use it to impact their organizations or use something that was helpful to them. Just as a reminder for everyone, as we wrap this up, we'll be sending out a copy of the slide deck and a recording of the webinar within the next few days. But again, thank you so much for being here today. Me and Michael really enjoy presenting to you. And we really appreciate the time you take out to listen to this webinar. So hope you all have a fabulous day, and thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.